Hi, and welcome to our next Your Story interview, where we're getting to know people in our church family better and hearing about how God has been working in their lives. And, as you watch these, I think you'll realize just how uniquely each of us have been created, but also how we all have this common thread running through our lives. We have triumph and tragedy, highs and lows, the good and the bad, and really how we all have this overwhelming need for a Savior. And aren't we so thankful that God has given us Jesus and also just continues to walk alongside us, meeting each of our needs throughout our lives. And, as you watch these interviews, I really hope that it leads you to think about your own story, how God's been working in your life and in the lives of the people around you. It really has made me think about my story, and it has me wondering about your story. Hi, welcome to our Your Story interview with Linda Johnson. Linda, thank you so much for being here today and sharing. Let's just start out with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, again, my name is Linda Johnson, and I have been coming to church here for 25 years. We started out in the Pink Church. I'm married to Greg, which a lot of people know. Mm-hmm. I have two children from a previous marriage. Jeremy, who him and his wife, Kelsey, just had a little boy. He's 4 months old.
Oh,
and then I have Jen and Dason, my daughter Jen, and we have two other grandchildren, Carly and Blake, who love Jumpstart and all the activities.
Good.
And they love Calvin. Love Calvin. And then Greg and I have Ryan, who lives in Clackamas. He's a fourth grade teacher. And he just got a dog that he named Seeger.
Oh, nice.
We're grand dog parents. Grand dog parents.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Good. Well, you mentioned how long you've been coming to the church, but what's your favorite part about being part of this church family?
It's a family. That's what I love about it, and I truly miss that part more than anything, is being around people who you feel familiar with, mm-hmm. You can say hi to, just worshiping together and knowing that everyone loves the Lord. And so it's a family, and when we're not here, I really, really miss it. Mm-hmm. You always think that it would be great to just sit in your pajamas and watch church. Not so much.
We're kind of getting that out
yeah,
of our
not
system
so
right
much.
now, aren't we?
I'm enjoying watching the sermons and stuff, but more so I miss really just the family.
Yeah. We miss everybody too. I mean, even when we're recording the services and doing them, it's very different mm-hmm. doing it to an empty sanctuary. Can't wait to be back. Can you tell us a little bit about your faith journey?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've thought about that a lot, and I don't have a wahoo yahoo moment where I became a Christian. I started out going to Sunday school with friends in elementary school. That is where I received my first relationship or guidance towards Jesus and his love for me. I had a teacher who, on my birthday, gave me a necklace with a pendant on it that had the fish with a cross. And she sat down and explained the meaning of it and prayed with me. And so that was my first real connection with my faith. And so a little bit later, my parents started going to church. And so we became a part of a church. And I attended lots of youth groups. But I kind of felt like it was more of a social thing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I had this deep connection. And I always felt like I was missing something. And so with that, as I got older and going through some difficulties in my life, I was like, okay, I can't do this on my own. And I started searching more and looking for church that I could get connected with and just listening more to what God was looking for with me. Even then, I wasn't totally committed. I was very worldly. And so it wasn't like, okay, well, I'm kind of struggling right now, so okay, God, but then I take it back. Mm-hmm. And so once I started to go through a divorce, I really realized that I couldn't do this on my own, and I needed to be forgiven for my part and also how to go forward. And so I think more so as that goes, I became more closer to Jesus and truly re-accepted him in my life. I became baptized at this church, gosh, probably about 15 years ago. And that's when I really, truly rededicated my life. Even though I was going to church and I believed, it's when I really felt like, okay, I need to lean on and trust God's promises for me and live that life.
Yeah. Neat, you kind of alluded to some of this maybe, but can you tell us more about some times in your life where you knew God was pointing you in one direction, but maybe you chose not to listen to him?
Well, there's a couple of things. One would be after I went through the divorce again, not again, but just the once, believing that God was still there with me, and that quiet voice of, you know, I got this, you know, I'm here, and I forgive you, and I still love you. And that was really important in my faith. Even at times when I didn't believe it, I think that was where God was talking to me. A couple other times that I totally had the Lord speak to me, which at the time I was like, whoa. Just recently I had some coworkers that had said some things that were really hurtful, and I didn't know how to react to them, and I kind of went on a pity party. Poor me, you know, wow. And one night I came home, and I kind of went in my bedroom, and I was just sitting there, and I just felt the Lord saying, get over it. Get over it. I love you, and you need to step forward and just shine instead of being on this pity party. And it was like, whoa. I got this, okay. Yeah. And I went out and I told Greg the next morning, I said, I think God was talking to me. I think he was saying, you know, get over it. And so that was really cool. And then one before then, my children, all three of them went to Mexico. And through all of the years they had gone quite a few times, and my husband, I said, I am never going. No way, I'm not camping, not gonna happen. So as Ryan was getting ready to go to college, Dustin had just came, and the youth director, and he had come and he had said, I need some help with the youth. And Ryan, my son, kind of nudged me and he goes, Mom, this would be good for you. I'm gone. You know, you don't have to deal with me. And I'm like, oh. So I signed up and I thought, okay, I'll try it. And it was just like God nudging me. So I really enjoyed it. I was doing Wednesday nights and I really enjoyed it. And they came time for Mexico, and the juniors at the time said, you gotta go. And I'm like, no way, not going. And so I said, I'll tell you what, I'll go next year, thinking they'll forget. No problem. Yeah. So came time, and I kind of sat quietly and didn't say anything, and a couple of them came up to me and they're like, you said you'd go. I'm like, okay, I'll go. It turned out to be one of the most amazing times in my life. I connected with these students like I never could imagine, from helping them wash their hair because they couldn't get the soap in there and get it clean and get it rinsed, to praying with them, to watching them grow, becoming a little community family with our little groups together, laughing together, having them teach me how to use a hammer, them laughing at me putting up my tent. They thought it was hysterical. Did they help me? No, they thought it was pretty funny.
It's always nice to be brought as the entertainment, right?
Entertainment, yeah. It was amazing, and I came back and it was like, wow. And so there is one of them. I did stay in touch with them for a little while their senior year. I went and watched a couple soccer games. I see a couple of them once in a while, and they always come up and hug me and say, do you remember? So obviously, not only did I make an impact on theirs, they made an impact on mine. Yeah. So I've learned never say never.
Right. It's usually those things you say never to that come back around. You find yourself in the midst of it, right?
Yes.
what, if anything, did you misunderstand about having a relationship with Christ before you had one?
So this is really important for me to share, and I talked to Joy about it before we started speaking. I deal with anxiety and depression. I have probably, as far as I can remember, more of the anxiety was when I was younger. Back then they called it hyper, and that was a really hard trigger for me. And as I got older, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And so that's been something that's been hard to deal with in the beginning, and now I look at it in some ways as a blessing. I work in an elementary school. I've worked there for 24 years at the same school, and God has shown me how I can relate and help those children relate to these kind of struggles when they can't sit still. I've had kids get to come and spend time with me if they earn enough points, so we can just sit at my desk and cut out box tops and do things. I've got to give hugs to kids every morning that are struggling, that just need somebody there, that maybe they didn't get that hug the night before. I just feel so blessed that God put me there. And it was truly just all of these things went in an order that was like not a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that I'm there for a reason for all of these students. And in my own personal life, just accepting it and realizing that some of the anxiety and the depression was not truly believing that God forgave me for some of the things in my life. And the biggest thing that's happening right now in my life is that doing the silly teenage things or young adult things that I wasn't walking through the Lord, as God reveals them to me, I pray about them and I give them back and say, I know I'm forgiven. And that's just started recently. And I just go, wow, I'm in awe of how it's not it's something that he's giving back to me so that I can get rid of those. So the biggest thing I've learned through all of this is it's not easy to believe that you're forgiven, especially when it seems like it's so big, but it's not. And so each time it happens, I just sit down and I just go, okay, Lord, it's over, it's done. I know you've forgiven me for it, no matter how small it is or how big it is. And that's really starting to change my heart.
Yeah, it's kind of like Dustin was saying in his sermon that the greatest distance is from your head to your heart to your hands. That understanding that and knowing and hearing that God forgives us, or that he sees us as perfect through Jesus, right, is something that we know and we can say and recite, but really understanding it and grasping it for ourselves and then living in a way that shows that is
I think also dealing with the depression part, of just trying to get into that low part, you feel like you're alone and you're feeling like, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get past this? And it is something that is not my fault, and that's one of the things that I have realized is that these being anxious and also having these highs and lows are not my fault. It's my chemical balance. And so instead of feeling sorry for myself, I'm looking at it as, okay, this is what God made me, and he made me that way for a reason. And so I believe my gift is more so to be able to share with other people that it's okay, but God will help you through it. And he's wanting me to reach out to him, to quit trying to do it by myself.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And you were talking about how sometimes in the church, we have there are expectations we set on ourselves, and we aren't necessarily open to talk about things that we feel like are stigmas or might reflect badly on ourselves or our relationship, like we're not good enough, essentially. And so talking about those things, I think, and acknowledging that we all have issues to work with, and that God is working on each one of us through these little issues. None of us are perfect, right?
And I've learned not to be more so judgmental, because everybody has these things. Some of them are more visible than internal. And so just accepting what God has made all of us to be is something that God's really put on my heart.
Yeah, that's neat. And I think what I've heard from you too is that it sounds like God's really helping you weed out the voice of truth compared to those lies that that Satan likes to feed us, right? That can really drag us down, and to really weed out what is the truth and what really God is speaking to us.
I think that's been the biggest blessing in my life at my age, is he's still working in my life. And that's amazing. He doesn't ever stop. And even though we know it, I feel it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great. What is one way that God has gifted you?
I think I kind of talked about that before. My gift is serving and giving. My mom gave me that gift of giving and serving and doing it humbly. When we were growing up, my mom and dad all taught us how to give, and especially more during the holidays and stuff. But the one thing they taught us to do was to be humble about it. And my mom always said that what she would tell people, if they knew who she was, she tried to communicate, all I ask in return is that someday when you're able to pay it forward, give this to somebody else. This is a gift. And so I've learned that. And so especially in these hard times, I feel like my husband and I both are working, and we feel so blessed, and we want other people to feel blessed, and knowing that people care, and that there is a family and a community out there that loves and cares about them.
Yeah, and so what ways are you doing that right now? Or have you, you've obviously served with the youth, and you've done, I know that even the things you were saying that you do at school are ways you've used your gifts, right?
I think, Greg and I are more in a spot right now where financially, we want to give, and other times we haven't been, so maybe we've just reached out and prayed more. But at this point in our life, we feel like God has blessed us. I look at my job and in our school district and how blessed we are. I know I keep using that word, but blessed is such a big word right now. And so I feel like that is where God can use it's his money.
Yeah.
It's his money. And that's something we've had to learn, especially me. My husband is non-materialistic. I'm materialistic. I am, that's just the way it is. We're complete opposites. And so God has said, here, this is it's his money. We don't need it. These other people. And so we want to continue to help bless people. And our church has done an amazing job of helping us to say, what do you need? What can we do to help? And I think there's also other people out there that just because they can't or don't have the means to financially, you can go grocery shopping, you can spend time with them, help them get on Zoom, help them to be able to watch the church service. I am just in awe of how many churches have been able to do that and be able to reach out. And I especially love the Wednesday Bible study. That's been an amazing part for me. That midweek uplifting has been just a blessing.
Good.
And our church has been a blessing just to so many people, and they are a family.
Yes, I feel that same way. I'm always so thankful that we have this extended community of people who really love Jesus and love each other. It's great. God's strength is always revealed best in our weaknesses. And to be honest with you, I think that this whole, throughout this has been a thread through a lot of your story. But specifically, how have you seen that in your life?
Well, my weakness is prayer. I showed that with you a little bit earlier, prayer. Because I have a hard time focusing, prayer is really hard for me to focus on. I start to pray and then my mind wanders. And I really enjoyed the Lord's Prayer. That's been really good for me to understand that more. As I think through the day, I'll stop and do that. One of my other little, I guess it's a ritual. Whenever I see 3:16 on the clock, I stop and say that verse. That was the very first verse I learned. And so it's like, oh, I have to stop. And I might be at work or whatever. So it's like God's way, okay, remember me. My worship the most that has helped me be closer to God is worship music. I love worship music. I listen to it almost all the time. I love the worship music in the church. That keeps me focused on the Lord, and it's my prayer to the Lord is saying those words, and I really mean it. And so that's my weakness is prayer, and I need to be better about it. Not that I don't pray, but my prayers are pretty short because I know, okay, I'm wondering, and then just being able to, I'm also teaching my grandkids. Greg and I are teaching them how to pray. He focuses a lot on Carly, and I focus a lot on Blake, and so that's been really good for me because I'm kind of where Blake is, keeping him focused on prayer and myself, so that's really good. But worshiping music is awesome tool.
And so I'm sure that your kids and your grandkids see that in you, and that also, that you think that prayer is a weakness of yours, but the fact that you still are dedicated to doing it, and that you're working on that with your kids and your grandkids, especially now. I love that you bring them to church with you, and that we get to see them on a really regular basis. It's just neat that you work through those. With our weaknesses, we don't just put those aside and say, that's just not something I'm good at. But it's something that we continue to work on, and that God uses other things in our life to bring those up and to feed us where we need to be fed.
And I really do think the Lord's Prayer has been really good for me. That Bible study has really helped me to go deeper into it and understand it. And so when I say the Lord's Prayer, it isn't just a bunch of words. It's got more meaning to it. And I can say each one more clearly, and I can focus on it.
That's good. Well, yeah, because Pastor Dustin is giving you things to tangibly think about. So I think sometimes when we're someone who has a hard time with focusing on just randomness, you know what I mean? Having something concrete to think about is helpful. Do you have a life verse that's really inspired you?
Yes. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And that's taken on a new meaning. I always shared that one with my kids, especially as they were going through trials through school, with friends or sports or different things in their life. So I've shared that. They all know that's my favorite verse. But one of the things that Greg especially helped me to start understanding is a new meaning for it. Not so much that it's more of my heart and my soul being able to resonate more what that means in my life. It's not, I can do all things is not worldly. It's more what the Holy Spirit is saying to me. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. He gives me the strength to be able to speak like today. I was like, but he gives me that strength. He gives me that strength of honesty to be able to say, hey, it's okay to share with people that you're struggling with anxiety, depression. I've gone through a divorce. To give me strength in so many ways that I didn't really understand. And Greg was really instrumental about saying, you know what that really means? And I was like, wow. And not that it isn't to give you the strength to be able to say, to have courage, but there's a more deeper meaning for it for me now in my adult life. sometimes I wish I learned some of these things first. But then my spiritual walk wouldn't be as strong, right?
That's true. And I think probably the Holy Spirit was teaching you that even in, because as you were talking about, some of those things that you went through as a kid with having the ADHD that that you've talked about, and then now that you see kids at school who are struggling with some of those same things, and the fact that you've always been using those things that happened and the way just God created you, and using things that were hurts for you to minister to the kids that you have been ministering to all of these years. That's also how
I think also I've been able to be empathetic with the parents. I mean, I've seen parents that have struggled, in tears at our school saying, hey, I don't know what to do. And I share my story with them. I share with them that I have too, and what I've done to help get through this. I can't share my faith with them, but a lot of them do know. A lot of people know that I'm a Christian. I mean, I wear my cross every day, and that's just more so, it's a different meaning for me, but it's also a symbol of faith that I feel is really strong. And so I'm able to talk to these parents and share with them my story of how I've been able to deal with it, and what just tips of, tell them I'm putting my parent hat on. This isn't from the school, and this is what I've done, to be able to sit still for a while, and what I've been able to do to understand what they're going through. And I think it's really helped some parents to feel like they're not doing anything wrong, that they can help their child, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's amazing that God placed you there, and He knew all along that's where you were going to be. And think about all of the families who you've helped that you probably don't even realize the impact that you've had, but He allowed you to go through those things, and with your childhood, and just in the way He created you so that you could minister to people where He placed you there at the school. So
again,
it's awesome.
I'm blessed.
You are, and so are the people who know you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you would like to share just about how God's been working in your life, or is continuing to, or any encouragement that you'd like to give people who might be watching?
I think more than anything is trusting that the Lord forgives you more, and that He loves you unconditionally, and believing it. And sometimes I go forward and then I go back, but God always leads me back. He always leads me back. And I know that He made me the way I am for a reason. And I don't look at it as poor me. I look at it as thank you. Thank you for making me and loving me.
That's neat. And accepting yourself for who God created you to be is a big part of our relationship with the Lord and walking with Him. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, and for being vulnerable and having courage to do it. It was really a blessing to us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next Tuesday to find out more about the way God's been working in our lives and somebody else's story.